If we're honest, things are not going that well for Project Motor Racing. On the day I'm making this video, on Steam charts, there were 44 people playing the game. So really, I shouldn't even make this video, I should just DM everyone. At the same time, Le Mans Ultimate had over 1,100 people playing. Now these are both games that feature, I would say almost at their core, a ton of hypercars and a ton of GT3 cars as well. So similar cars, also similar tracks as well. For example, both of them have Silverstone, but not quite, as I'm going to go into.
The second track joining the officially licensed Silverstone in Pack 2 of the ELMS Season Pass.
So I think there's a lot that Project Motor Racing can learn from Le Mans Ultimate if it wants to be a success, but to be honest, if it wants to survive, because 44 players playing on Steam, yes, it's on PlayStation, Xbox as well, and Giants Launcher, but 44 people on Steam for a game that has kind of multiplayer at its core is not survivable, I would say. So hopefully everyone's going to find this video very helpful, because these are my honest thoughts. I'm not paid by Le Mans Ultimate or Project Motor Racing to make this video, but I have met the developers of both. The developers are great people, they're all very passionate people, but unfortunately passion doesn't equal success. So the first thing that Project Motor Racing can learn from Le Mans Ultimate is about the licensing. Now this might sound like a small point, but trust me, this is going to feed into so many other things that are going to show you the reason why Le Mans Ultimate is much more popular at this moment in time than Project Motor Racing. Because Le Mans Ultimate is a game that wears licensing absolutely on its sleeve. The game is called Le Mans, for goodness sake. It has all of the licensed cars and tracks. It constantly expands the license, for example, during the European Le Mans series as well. And you know that when new content comes to the game, it is officially licensed, it comes with all the branding, all the logos, and that means that you partake, you benefit from the big wave those brands have themselves. Let me give you a clear example. So I had both early access to the Le Mans Ultimate latest update and the Project Motor Racing new update. The Le Mans new update had the Genesis hypercar in it for free, which we couldn't even talk about. It was top secret, it was under lock and key, but that was a conjunction launch in the game, and also the Genesis hypercar coming IRL to the World Endurance Championship, which was insane. Everyone's talking about it online, everyone wants to drive it in the game. That is the benefit of licensed content. Meanwhile, you look at Project Motor Racing, the cover car of Project Motor Racing is the Lamborghini hypercar, which to all intents and purposes doesn't really exist in top level motorsport at the moment. It's a ghost car. So you look at the front cover of Project Motor Racing, and the front and the cover car is a car that makes no sense. Now, I've worked with Lamborghini, I've gone out and seen that car, I love that car, absolutely love it, but it's not a cover car. It's really weird. It's not. There are so many better cars that could be cover cars for that game. Also, when you look at the game and it has tracks like Northampton, and it has tracks like Tamiya, I think it was, for Silverstone and Okayama respectively. If you're a hardcore gamer, that's not going to bother you at all. If you're super hardcore, you ain't going to care. You might even prefer it. You'll be like, I'm happy that we're not paying licensing fees. However, if you're a casual player, that doesn't make any sense to you. It's going to be off-putting. I've had some people say to me, look, isn't it a bit like Pro Evolution Soccer and FIFA? And I would say this. FIFA beat Pro Evolution Soccer. FIFA was a bigger commercial success than Pro Evolution, and that's even when Pro Evolution Soccer was regarded as a better game. And no one, I think, objectively can clear-cut say that Project Motor Racing is clearly a better game than Le Mans Ultimate. Like, licensing works. You kind of get the benefit of the brand exposure, and you get more casual players into your game. And this comes on to my second point, okay? The thing that Project Motor Racing can learn from Le Mans Ultimate is Le Mans Ultimate unashamedly is happy to cater for casual players. For a casual player, they just want to drive these cars and have fun. And that is where we see Le Mans Ultimate expanding its player base so much, which means that the company is making, record profits compared to what they've been doing recently. The game is in rude health, there's a player count. Whereas Project Motor Racing, what Project Motor Racing is focusing on is stuff like adding the ECU, which is more complication, having the force feedback split in different places, which we're going to get onto. And generally the culture of the game is, well, if you're not completely hardcore, if you don't want to spend a load of time making setups, this isn't the game for you. And frankly, there's a sense of arrogance, I don't think from the developers, because I've spoken with the developers, that this game shouldn't be dumbed down in any way, because if you dumb it down, then you lose the essence of Project Motor Racing. Now my answer to that is a skilled game can do both. A skilled game can be a great simulation for hardcore fans, which is fantastic. I'm a hardcore fan. But also it can have the assists, it can have the explainers, it can have the tooltips to make it accessible for a casual audience. There were times we were told that Project Motor Racing couldn't even incorporate tooltips because it was some kind of limitation with the farming simulator engine, which is like, it doesn't make any sense when you need to be getting casual players into your game in order to be successful. And by the way, this is another point that I think Project Motor Racing can learn. Le Mans Ultimate knows that there is an existing hardcore iRacing audience out there. And Le Mans Ultimate is rarely trying to take iRacing on head to head. Le Mans Ultimate is offering different things from iRacing. It's deliberately packaging the DLC in a way that's more attractive. It's never really doing individual cars or individual tracks. It's always bundling them together, which is a clear differentiator between iRacing's model. So it's not trying to get in a square battle with iRacing yet. Project Motor Racing, the way some people want this game to be so hardcore, I can tell you right now, when I speak to real world racing drivers, they're on iRacing. Like the ultimate hardcore racing drivers that want to practice in a simulation that's not like the team simulation but want something as close as they can get, they're doing iRacing. They ain't going to be doing Project Motor Racing. I don't know where the Stig is right now. He talked a big game about Project Motor Racing. It looks like he's been removed from the game. But again, if you try and make Project Motor Racing too much of a hardcore sim, in my view, it's irrelevant because those players are going to be on iRacing or the original Assetto Corsa or whatever. And if you don't make it casual enough, you're never going to actually capture a big enough player base. And Le Mans Ultimate has just done that superbly. It's coming to console. Everyone's really excited for that. They're not rushing it. They're taking the time with the career mode. It's a game that you can recommend to everyone. It kind of works now, and it's good for that casual player base as well. Now let's go on to pricing. At the time of writing, Project Motor Racing is more expensive than Le Mans Ultimate. And there's an obvious answer here. They need to discount the hell out of Project Motor Racing. There's no way Project Motor Racing can justify its higher price over Le Mans Ultimate. And this is another problem that Project Motor Racing has, and sometimes hardcore Project Motor Racing fans don't understand. No casual player, no new player is obliged to play Project Motor Racing. And when they look at Le Mans Ultimate, the pricing of it, and the licensed content, and then you look at Project Motor Racing, which is more expensive, but you're driving at Northampton, not Silverstone, it's easy for those new players, those casual players, to go to Le Mans Ultimate. And then you're just not going to grow the game. The game is not going to be sustainable. These casual players are, paying for the servers, etc., the back end, paying for the development. If you don't have those casual players, you're not going to sustain the game for the hardcore. And unfortunately, Project Motor Racing is just too much of an expensive proposition. I think it's pretty much accepted now that the game was too expensive at launch. I think this game should have been an early access game. I was very critical of Le Mans Ultimate at launch, if you remember on this channel, but they were all criticisms that could be, and the majority were fixed during the course of early access, which is exactly how it should work. With Project Motor Racing, the criticism hits a little bit differently because there's no safety net of early access. You're asking people to pay, over £50, for example. So that's where Project Motor Racing can learn from Le Mans Ultimate. Another area where they have to learn from is virtual reality. If you want to be a new sim in the space these days, I think you just need to have virtual reality. Le Mans Ultimate has been quite careful about this. It didn't launch with VR. They added it. I think they added it too early, but it worked at the time. I've made tons of videos, and if I want to have a fun race at Le Mans at nighttime in the 499p, I'm going to go on Le Mans Ultimate in my VR headset. They've partnered with PIMAX, one of the biggest VR sim racing headset manufacturers, and now a lot of people are doing Le Mans Ultimate in VR. So they're keeping that VR community happy. Project Motor Racing, unfortunately, was deceptive about this. They talked a big game about VR, and then they switched the Giants engine, saying that the Unreal Engine was not going to be as good for VR, and we don't have VR at launch. It's kind of been swept under the carpet. I don't know what the status is with VR, but a lot of people ultimately felt betrayed by that, and I don't think they will ever buy Project Motor Racing because the betrayal felt so strong. I've spoken with Rensport about this. I flew out there, I asked a developer. They said that VR is very difficult to do, but they have some people working on it. They're going to try and do it, but they acknowledge it's difficult. We don't even know where Project Motor Racing stands on VR at the moment, and they just have to give us an answer on it. be honest with the community, because like I said, at the moment, people feel betrayed, whereas Le Mans Ultimate didn't launch with VR, but they added it in and they keep improving it. Okay, it's time to get to force feedback, right? So the latest Le Mans Ultimate adds True Force, and when you drive Le Mans Ultimate with True Force and you go over the curbs, it's a fantastic experience. You don't really have to tweak too much. They keep it very, very, very simple in the settings, and it encourages you to jump into different cars. You feel like, oh, I want to drive at Monza today. You know what? I'm going to try a different car. I'm going to select it, jump in, and have a good time. Whereas in Project Motor Racing, because the force feedback needs to really be tweaked on a per car basis, it doesn't incentivize you to jump in and race. And now whatever, you know, again, if you're super hardcore and you want to spend the majority of your time setting up cars, that's not a problem. But I'm afraid those people are in a minority. The majority of people, we're working our day jobs, we come back and we want to jump in and we want to race and we want to have fun. And we want to have fun at our difficulty level. You know, some people running no assist all the way to sliding scale, some people running a ton of assist. That doesn't matter. Everyone's entitled to have their own fun. But the way the force feedback is set up in Project Motor Racing, it makes you feel like you're not going to get a good experience out of every car unless you tweak it. And it makes you feel like if you jump into a new car, you're not going to be getting the optimal experience. Whereas Le Mans Ultimate, the cars are set up quite nicely. You can jump in, you can jump around, and now with True Force you can have an absolutely fantastic experience. Project Motor Racing, if I remember, was meant to launch with Full Force. Again, I haven't heard too much about that. I don't know what the status is with Project Motor Racing with Full Force and True Force. I just know that with Le Mans Ultimate, because I've been playing both games back to back, it's a fantastic experience out of the box. Now, so much of what I've said so far is a shame, really, because Project Motor Racing at its core I think is a good game. Since I had the press copy just for launch, I was like, there's a lot of this I like. It's going to be divisive. Some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. But there's a lot in here that I like. And I feel like Project Motor Racing just keep stumbling over issues that Le Mans Ultimate haven't. Le Mans Ultimate have addressed each of these issues and they've chosen the correct path. For example, are we going to make the game super hardcore or are we going to make it accessible? They chose accessibility. The game is flourishing. Project Motor Racing, are we going to make it accessible or are we going to make it super hardcore and you don't really know that your tyres are cold and it's going to be impossible to drive the hypercars until you warm up the tyres? Let's choose that option. Okay, no one really understands the game. The casuals hate it. YouTubers who often YouTubers, you know, YouTubers reviewing the game, for most other YouTubers, they're not going to be able to dedicate the time and really explore that. I was quite lucky because I was on my leave looking after my baby, so I was able to spend more time understanding the game. But again, those YouTube reviewers don't also owe the game anything. They're going to just play the game and, touch wood, give their honest opinion. And the game didn't make it easy for them. So I just feel like Project Motor Racing has taken the wrong choice so far many times compared to Le Mans Ultimate. And I've said time and time again my opinion on what choices they should take. And I think if they take these choices, the game will actually grow, because I think the fundamentals of the game are there. I really do. I really think that there's a good chance that Project Motor Racing could become a successful game. My biggest worry is at some point they might go, right, we kind of know what to do now. We're kind of making good decisions and the game is growing. Should we just call it a day on Project Motor Racing 1? And should we just save all these with Project Motor Racing 2? And we'll charge again another £50 for that. That's my biggest worry at the moment, because I do think that they can make the game a success. Obviously, they might continue to make what are, in my opinion, the wrong changes, and that player count may go from 44 players to dipping down to 35 players, dipping down to 20 players, and then you're in big trouble. And Giants might look at it and say, well, what are we doing, like, spending money on this? I don't know. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I know there's not that many people playing Project Motor Racing, so I'm not sure why I'm really making videos on it, but I feel like I owe it to the community to give my honest thoughts on this and let you know from my experience what I think Project Motor Racing should do. So they can learn a lot from Le Mans Ultimate. Make sure to subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.